General Zixvorn's antennae twitched nervously as the human ship docked with his command vessel. He stood tall among his fellow officers, his dark exoskeleton reflecting the bright lights of the docking bay. This would be his first face-to-face meeting with the creatures from Earth, a planet classified as a Deathworld in hegemony records. "Remember," he chittered to his lieutenants, "do not allow them to touch you with their limbs. Reports say those appendages can crush bones in seconds." His officers clicked their mandibles in acknowledgement. The reports about humans had spread quickly through the galactic hegemony after first contact. Stories of beings who evolved on a high-gravity world filled with predators. Beings whose very bodies were weapons. The airlock hissed open. General Zixvorn steeled himself as 3 humans stepped forward. They were shorter than he expected, with soft-looking exteriors instead of proper exoskeletons. Yet, according to intelligence, these creatures could endure impacts that would shatter a hegemony soldier. "Welcome aboard the galactic vessel Harmony," General Zixvorn said through his translator. "I am General Zixvorn, military commander of the 7th Fleet." The lead human stepped forward, a male with short brown hair and a friendly expression that showed his teeth. The general knew this was meant to be non-threatening in human culture, but it looked like a predator's warning display to him. "Thank you for hosting us, General," the human said. "I'm Steve Clark, Earth's diplomatic envoy. These are my colleagues, Amanda Wells and Greg Hoffman." Steve extended his hand forward, and General Zixvorn jerked backward. The human immediately lowered the appendage, looking confused. "My apologies," Amanda said quickly. "We forgot that handshakes might not translate well across cultures. It's just a greeting gesture." The general's compound eyes studied the human limbs. They didn't look dangerous. No claws, no obvious weapons, yet all the reports claimed humans had devastating strength in those 5-fingered hands. "Please, follow me to the meeting chamber," General Zixvorn said, carefully maintaining distance as they walked. In the large oval room, the general noticed how his officers positioned themselves far from the humans. Greg Hoffman, the communications specialist, seemed to be watching these reactions with interest. "We're excited about the possibility of joining the galactic hegemony," Amanda said as they sat down, humans on one side, hegemony officials on the other. "Earth has much to offer in terms of resources and innovation. And military support, I understand," the general said cautiously. "Your species has a unique history of warfare." Steve nodded. "We hope those days are behind us. But yes, Earth maintains defense forces." As the meeting continued, General Zixvorn couldn't help but notice how casually the humans moved their arms while talking. Each gesture made his officers flinch. When Gray accidentally knocked over a water container, 2 security guards reached for their weapons before realizing it was just a harmless movement. Later, as the humans were escorted to their quarters, Greg pulled his colleagues aside in the corridor. "Have you noticed how they react when we move our hands?" he whispered. "I've been monitoring their communications. They think our arms are specialized weapons." Amanda's eyes widened. "They're afraid of us, of our hands." Their reports describe humans as Deathworld predators with crushing limbs. Greg explained. "They think we evolved arms specifically for combat." Steve considered this information. Should we correct them? Amanda thought for a moment. Not yet. The military alliance negotiations start tomorrow. This misunderstanding might actually give us leverage. Earth is still recovering from the resource wars. We need this alliance more than they know. "So we let them think we're more dangerous than we are?" Steve asked. "We don't lie," Amanda clarified. "We just don't explain that our hands evolved for tool use, not fighting. Let's see how the negotiations go first." Meanwhile, in his private quarters, General Zixvorn reviewed footage of human combat training. He watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as the soft-skinned creatures lifted heavy objects, broke hard materials, and fought each other with those deadly appendages they called hands. Tomorrow would begin military discussions with these dangerous creatures. The general needed to be careful, Very careful indeed. The next day, General Zixvorn stood on the observation deck overlooking the large training area. His forearms were crossed tightly against his thorax as he watched the humans prepare for their military demonstration. "Are the safety barriers in place?" he asked his second-in-command. "Yes, General. Triple layered, as you ordered," the officer replied. "Though I doubt they would stop a human if it truly wanted to break through." Below them, Captain Kimberly Davis and her team of 6 Marines had set up various stations. There were weights, wooden boards, and combat dummies. The captain wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons, except for her hands, which the aliens already feared. Steve Clark stood beside the general. "I hope this demonstration will show that humans can be valuable military allies," he said. The general's mandibles clicked nervously. "Indeed." Captain Davis stepped forward and saluted. "With your permission, General, we'll begin with basic physical capability demonstrations before moving to combat techniques." The general nodded, and the captain walked to the first station. She lifted a heavy weight with one hand, holding it steadily. The weight was moderate by human standards, about 50 pounds, but the aliens watched in silent horror. To their physiology, such strength in a limb meant only one thing: it was designed for killing. Next, a Marine named Jeff Brown demonstrated breaking boards with his bare hands. The sharp crack of splintering wood made several hegemony officers jump back. General Zixvorn observed with growing concern as the humans casually displayed what his species would consider extraordinary combat abilities. "Now, if a volunteer from your security team would join us," Captain Davis said, "we can demonstrate basic hand-to-hand techniques." The general hesitated before signaling one of his bravest soldiers forward. The insectoid alien stepped cautiously toward Jeff, who smiled in what he hoped was a reassuring way. "I'll just show a standard handshake. The proper way to do it," Jeff explained. "It's completely safe." He extended his hand slowly. The alien officer looked at General Zixborn, who gave a small nod. With visible reluctance, the officer extended one of his upper limbs. Jeff gently clasped the alien's arm, but even this light grip caused the officer's exoskeleton to make a small cracking sound. The alien jerked back in pain. "I barely touched him," Jeff exclaimed in shock. The room erupted in chaos. Security officers rushed forward. Captain Davis ordered her team to stand down and show empty hands. The injured alien was quickly taken to the medical bay. Dr. Alan Peterson, the human medical officer, stepped forward. "Please, let me explain. Human physiology is adapted to Earth's higher gravity. We don't mean to." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the general's communication device buzzed urgently. "General," an officer called from the doorway, "Vrex Dominion ships have been detected. They've launched boarding pods." The Vrex, a rival alien faction known for their aggression and territorial expansion. Their sudden appearance could only mean trouble. "This meeting is over," General Zixvorn announced. "All humans will be escorted to secure quarters until—" A massive explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and went out, replaced seconds later by dim emergency lighting. The sound of weapons fire echoed from nearby corridors. "They're already aboard," the general's second-in-command shouted. "Security teams to Sector 7. Captain Davis stepped forward. "General, my team is trained for combat. Let us help." The general hesitated. Using these dangerous humans in battle might work, but could he trust them? Before he could decide, another explosion rocked the ship, closer this time. "General, we need to move now," Steve insisted. "Your people are in danger." Through the observation window, they could see Vrex soldiers, reptilian beings with body armor and energy weapons, moving through adjacent corridors, firing at fleeing hegemony civilians. General Zixvorn made his decision. "Very well. Captain Davis, your team may assist, but under our supervision." As the humans prepared for battle, the general wondered if he had just made a terrible mistake by unleashing these Deathworld creatures with their weapon arms. Yet as the sounds of battle grew closer, he knew he had little choice. Chaos filled the corridors of the hegemony ship. The emergency lights cast eerie red shadows as General Zixvorn hurried alongside Captain Davis and her Marines. The sound of energy weapons and screams echoed around them. "My security teams are being overwhelmed in sections 3 and 5, the general said, checking his communication device. "The Vrex brought more soldiers than we expected." Captain Davis nodded. "We'll split up to cover more ground. Jeff and I will go with you, General. The rest of you, help evacuate civilians to the safe zones." As they separated at a junction, a blast hit nearby, knocking the general away from his guards. He found himself alone with the two humans in a smoke-filled corridor. "This way," Jeff said, helping the general up. "I hear fighting ahead." They rounded a corner and saw a terrible sight. A group of hegemony civilians, scientists and support staff with no combat training, were backed against a wall as 3 Vrex soldiers approached. The reptilian invaders raised their weapons. Without hesitation, Security Officer Diane Foster appeared from a side corridor. She had been separated from her team. The human female tackled the nearest Vrex soldier, knocking its weapon aside. The blast hit the ceiling instead of the civilians. General Zixvorn watched in confusion. The human was using her deadly weapon limbs, but to protect his people, not harm them. Captain Davis grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor. She threw it with amazing accuracy, hitting another Vrex in the head. Jeff rushed the third enemy, dodging energy blasts before knocking the weapon from its claws. The general expected the humans to kill the Vrex with their powerful hands. Instead, they quickly tied up the enemies with cord from their utility belts. "Get the civilians to safety," Diane told the general as she checked an injured alien child for wounds. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for limbs the general had feared as weapons. In another section of the ship, Commander Eric Summers found himself with a group of office workers, both human and hegemony. They were trapped as Vrex soldiers approached from both ends of the corridor. "Quick, grab those chairs," Eric ordered. "Use the metal parts to jam the door controls." The aliens looked confused, but the humans immediately understood. They broke apart office furniture, using pieces to block one doorway. For the other approach, they created a barricade of desks and filing cabinets. When the Vrex tried to force their way through, the humans fought with improvised weapons, chair legs as clubs, sharp metal pieces as daggers. The hegemony workers, seeing this example, joined in with similar makeshift tools. General Zixvorn arrived with Captain Davis just as Eric's group repelled the attackers. He watched in amazement as humans and his people worked together, neither species using specialized weapons, just their minds and whatever they could find. "They're retreating to regroup," Captain Davis said, checking around a corner. "But they'll be back with more forces." The general's communication device sparked to life. "General, this is the bridge. The Vrex are pulling back to their ships. Our defenses are holding, but we've taken heavy damage." "Casualties?" the general asked. "Minimal in areas where the humans assisted," came the surprising reply. "Heavy losses elsewhere." General Zixvorn looked at the humans around him. These creatures had defended his people, despite barely knowing them. They had used their feared physical abilities not for destruction, but for protection. "I don't understand," he finally said to Captain Davis. "Our reports said humans are dangerous predators, that your arms evolved as weapons, yet you risked your lives for alien civilians." Captain Davis wiped sweat from her forehead. "We're not predators, General. We're protectors when we need to be." The general's mandibles clicked softly as he processed this. Perhaps there is more to learn about humans than our reports suggest. As emergency teams arrived to help the wounded, the general watched a human medic gently treat an injured hegemony officer. Those same hands that could break wood and bend metal were now carefully applying bandages. For the first time, General Zixvorn began to wonder if he had completely misunderstood these strange creatures from Earth. Hours after the attack, the ship's main medical bay was crowded with wounded. General Zixvorn stood in the doorway, watching Dr. Lisa Morgan work. The human doctor moved quickly between patients, her hand steady as she treated both hegemony personnel and the few humans who had been injured. The general was still processing what he had seen during the battle. Humans using their supposedly deadly appendages to save his people rather than harm them. It went against everything in the hegemony reports. "Your doctor is quite skilled," he said to Steve Clark, who stood beside him. "Lisa is one of our best," Steve replied. "She volunteered specifically for this mission." The general's compound eyes followed her movements. Those hands, they perform such delicate work. "That's what hands are designed for, General. Precision tasks." A junior hegemony medical officer approached Dr. Morgan with a tray of surgical tools. The doctor picked up an instrument so tiny that the general could barely see it. With incredible precision, she used it to remove a fragment of metal from a wounded alien's eye. "Amazing control," the general murmured. Later that day, General Zixvorn requested a private meeting with Dr. Paul Wilson, Earth's chief biologist who had arrived with the diplomatic team. They met in a small conference room away from the busy repair efforts. "Doctor, I must understand more about humans," the general said directly. "Our reports classify you as Deathworld predators with natural weapons, yet what I witnessed today challenges this assessment." Dr. Wilson smiled. "I'm happy to explain, General. There are many misconceptions about human evolution." The biologist activated a small projector, showing images of early humans. "We didn't evolve as super predators. Early humans were actually quite vulnerable compared to other Earth species. No claws, no fangs, no armor. But your strength," the general began, "is moderate at best." Dr. Wilson continued. "Many Earth animals are far stronger. What made humans successful was adaptability and tool use." He pointed to an image of a human hand. "These evolved primarily for manipulation, not combat. We became tool makers, not living weapons." The general leaned forward with interest. "Yet you survived on a high-gravity world filled with dangerous creatures." "Through intelligence and cooperation, not physical power," Wilson explained. "We're generalists, not specialists. Our hands can perform delicate surgery or hold weapons, build shelters or create art. Our success came from versatility, not specialized biological weapons." Their conversation was interrupted when a young hegemony scientist entered with a data tablet. "General, I have completed the comparative strength analysis you requested." The general gestured for the scientist to proceed. "Humans rank only in the middle range for grip strength among known species," the scientist reported. "Their physical power is actually quite unremarkable. Their endurance is notable, but not their raw strength." General Zixvorn's antennae twitched in surprise. "This contradicts our military intelligence. The initial reports may have exaggerated based on limited observations," the scientist suggested. After the scientist left, Dr. Wilson continued. "If I may be direct, General, it seems your people were afraid of us before you truly understood us." The general's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Fear often causes misunderstanding." He rose from his seat. "I must reconsider many things. Thank you for your honesty, Doctor." As General Zixvorn walked through the ship's corridors, he passed human engineers working alongside his crew to repair damage from the attack. They used the same hands, these non-weapon appendages, to fix broken systems with remarkable skill. In the training room, he paused to watch Captain Davis instructing a group of hegemony security officers. She wasn't teaching them how to punch harder or crush enemies. Instead, she showed them how to disarm opponents with minimal force and how to use the environment to their advantage. "The key is not strength," she explained. "It's knowing how to adapt to the situation." Adaptation. The word stuck in the general's mind as he continued his rounds. Perhaps humans weren't dangerous because of their limbs. Perhaps there was something else. something more important than physical strength, that made them effective warriors. He needed to learn more before the Strategic Alliance Summit began tomorrow. The next morning, General Zix Vorn stood at the entrance of the large strategy room aboard the Hegemony flagship. Military officers from both species gathered around a large circular table with a holographic display in the center. The Strategic Alliance Summit was about to begin. The general watched the human delegation enter. His eyes no longer focused on their hands with fear, but with curiosity. Admiral Laura Bennett led the group, her uniform decorated with service pins. She nodded respectfully to the general. "Welcome, Admiral," General Zix Vorn said. "Yesterday's attack has shown us the importance of strong allies. The Vrex grow bolder each cycle, which is why Earth is eager to join your defense network." Admiral Bennett replied, "We bring different strengths to this alliance." As they took their seats, the general noticed how differently he felt today. Just days ago, he had dreaded this meeting, fearing these Deathworld creatures might become a threat. Now, after seeing them in action, he wanted to understand them better. The holographic display activated, showing star systems along the border where Vrex forces had been active. Admiral Bennett studied the map carefully. "The Vrex attack in patterns," she observed. "They probe defenses, then withdraw to analyze weaknesses." A hegemony strategist clicked his mandibles in disagreement. "They are simple raiders. They attack where resources are plentiful." "May I suggest a simulation?" Admiral Bennett asked. "We can test both theories." The general approved, and the display changed to show a tactical simulation. The hegemony officers entered standard defense patterns, placing strongest forces at resource-rich locations. The humans suggested a different approach, creating small response teams that could quickly move between systems. When the simulation ran, the human strategy proved more effective against the simulated Vrex attacks. General Zix Vorn watched with growing interest as Admiral Bennett explained their thinking. "We don't try to be stronger everywhere," she said. "We focus on being smarter and more flexible. Adaptation is our advantage." As the day progressed, the general observed how quickly the humans grasped new information and developed unusual solutions to problems his own strategists had struggled with for years. They didn't approach warfare as the hegemony did, with specialized units for specific tasks. Instead, they created versatile teams that could handle many different situations. During a break, one of the general's lieutenants approached him privately. "General, these humans are proving unusual," the lieutenant said quietly. "Their military doctrine is unlike anything in our records. Perhaps we should consider capturing a few specimens for biological study, if we could understand what makes them so adaptable." "No," General Zix Vorn said firmly. His voice carried such authority that the lieutenant's antennae flattened in surprise. "The humans are our allies, not test subjects. Their value isn't in their biology, but in their thinking." After the lieutenant left, Admiral Bennett joined the general at the observation window overlooking the stars. "Your officer seemed upset," she noted. "Some of my people still cling to old ideas about humans," the general admitted. "They believe your species has some biological advantage that makes you dangerous." "And what do you believe, General?" He turned his compound eyes toward her. "I'm beginning to think your real strength isn't in your limbs at all. It's in here." He tapped his head with one of his upper arms. Admiral Bennett smiled. "The human body is remarkable in many ways, but yes, our minds are our greatest asset. We evolved to solve problems, not to overpower them." "The hegemony evolved differently," the general explained. "Each species in our alliance developed specialized biological adaptations. The Krith have armored shells. The Voltar have venomous spines. My people have enhanced sensory organs. We all became specialists, while humans became generalists," Admiral Bennett finished. "Exactly. And perhaps that is what we need most in this alliance. A different perspective, a different kind of strength." As they returned to the strategy table, General Warren felt a new sense of respect for these strange aliens. Not fear of their physical capabilities, but appreciation for their mental ones. The summit would continue tomorrow. But tonight, urgent news arrived. The Vreks were on the move again. Their fleet had been detected heading toward a crucial waypoint. Both human and hegemony ships would need to depart immediately. The ship shook violently as another blast hit its shields. General Warren grabbed a support beam to steady himself. Red alert lights flashed across the command center as damage reports flooded in from all sections. Shield strength at 30%. A hegemony officer called out. Hull breaches on levels 3 through 7. Vreks boarding craft approaching, another reported. At least 6 of them. The general's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of stress in his species. The Vreks attack had been well planned. They had been waiting in the shadow of a gas giant, ambushing the convoy as it passed. Direct all security teams to potential boarding zones, the general ordered, and send the alert to the human vessel. He hoped the Earth ship had fared better in the ambush than his own. An explosion rocked the ship, larger than the previous ones. The lights went out completely before emergency systems activated. Direct hit to the command section, his second-in-command reported. We've lost main power and engines. General, we're getting reports of Vreks already aboard, a security officer said urgently. They've breached 3 entry points simultaneously. Before the general could respond, the command center doors slammed shut automatically, a security measure to protect the bridge. They were now cut off from the rest of the ship. Try to restore communications, General Warren ordered. We need to coordinate our defense. For the next hour, they received fragmented reports of fighting throughout the ship. The Vreks were moving systematically from section to section. Without guidance from the command center, the hegemony defense was faltering. Then the command center door began to glow red as cutting tools worked from the outside. Prepare for combat, the general ordered, drawing his sidearm. His officers formed a defensive line, aiming at the door. When the door finally fell, they fired immediately, but lowered their weapons in surprise when human security specialist Ryan Cooper rolled into the room, followed by 3 hegemony soldiers. General, the ship is overrun, Ryan reported, breathing heavily. We've been fighting our way here to reach you. The command systems, the general asked. Damaged but repairable, one of the hegemony soldiers replied. But we must move quickly. More Vreks are coming. They hurried through darkened corridors, encountering small groups of Vreks soldiers. The general watched as Ryan fought beside them. The human wasn't stronger than the reptilian Vreks. In fact, the enemy had thicker muscles and heavier builds. But Ryan moved differently, adapting his fighting style to each situation. When facing 2 enemies, he used the narrow corridor to force them into single file. When outnumbered, he used the environment, pushing debris to block paths or creating distractions. As they reached a maintenance junction, gravity suddenly failed. The hegemony soldiers flailed helplessly, unused to zero-gravity combat. The general himself felt disoriented as he floated upward. But Ryan quickly grabbed a handhold and anchored himself. Push off surfaces, he called to the others. Use light touches to control your movement. A group of Vreks soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor, using specialized boots to stay grounded. They'd raised their weapons. Behind me. Ryan pulled himself in front of the general, then pushed off with precise force, launching himself toward a side passage. The general and his officers followed, narrowly avoiding energy blasts. In the next section, they encountered engineer Kate Martins working frantically on a control panel with improvised tools. Almost got it, she muttered, connecting 2 wires. Suddenly, gravity returned at partial strength. That should give us an advantage. The Vreks thrive in full gravity with those strong legs. This will throw off their balance while we can still move effectively. General Warren watched in amazement. The humans hadn't overpowered the Vreks. They had outthought them. They weren't using superior biological weapons, but superior problem-solving. This way, Kate said. I secured a path to auxiliary control. We can restart the defense systems from there. As they moved through the ship, the general saw human and hegemony crews working together, adapting to the crisis. He finally understood. Human arms weren't weapons. Human minds were. With auxiliary control secured, General Zixvorn and the survivors worked quickly to assess the ship's status. The news wasn't good. Life support systems were failing in several sections, and the main engines were completely offline. We've pushed back the Vrex boarding parties for now, Ryan Cooper reported as he returned from checking the security teams. But they'll regroup soon. The general nodded, his antennae drooping slightly with fatigue. What of the other ships in our convoy? 2 hegemony vessels were destroyed, Kate Martinez said, looking up from a display. The human ship took damage but managed to jump to safety. They don't know we survived. In the relative quiet of the moment, General Zixvorn turned to Ryan. Officer Cooper, there is something I must ask. Our military intelligence reported that humans evolved specialized combat limbs due to your planet's harsh conditions. Yet I have observed otherwise. Why did you not correct this misunderstanding? Ryan laughed, a sound that startled the nearby hegemony officers. We noticed your misconception during the first meeting. You all flinched whenever we moved our hands. He shrugged. We didn't correct it out of diplomatic courtesy. We didn't want to embarrass your intelligence services. The general's compound eyes widened. Diplomatic courtesy. You let us believe you were more dangerous than you are. Well, Ryan said with a slight smile, sometimes a reputation can be useful. But honestly, we're not living weapons. Humans are generalists. We evolve for versatility, not combat. I'm beginning to understand that, the general said. Most species in the hegemony evolved specific adaptations: natural armor, enhanced senses, toxic secretions. We became specialists. While humans focused on adaptability and problem-solving, Ryan finished. Our hands aren't weapons, they're tools. Incredibly versatile tools that let us manipulate our environment instead of adapting our bodies to it. This revelation changed everything the general had believed about warfare itself. Not superior weapons, but superior versatility. Not overwhelming force, but intelligent adaptation. Their conversation was interrupted as a communications officer called out, General, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Vrex command ship. The screen flickered to life, showing the scaled face of a Vrex commander. Hegemony vessel. The reptilian being hissed. Your position is hopeless. Surrender now. We will not surrender to Vrex raiders, General Zixvorn replied firmly. This is no mere raid, the Vrex commander said. This is the beginning of a new campaign. Our main fleet is already heading toward your precious new ally, Earth. These Deathworld creatures are too dangerous to join the galactic community. We will eliminate them before they spread. The screen went dark. A heavy silence fell over the control room. They're targeting Earth, Kate whispered. But Earth doesn't have the defenses to repel a full Vrex fleet. And our ship is crippled, the general said grimly. We have no way to warn them or call for help. The humans exchanged worried looks. Then Kate snapped her fingers, a human gesture of sudden inspiration. We might have a way, she said. The jump drive is damaged but still has power. If we reconfigure it, we could create a focused subspace burst, a message beacon that might reach Earth or a nearby hegemony outpost. That's not what jump drives are designed for, a hegemony engineer objected. The calibration would be impossibly precise. One mistake, and the energy buildup could destroy the ship. It's possible, Kate insisted. Risky, but possible. General Zixvorn looked at the humans. Just days ago, he had feared them as dangerous predators. Now, he was considering a desperate plan based on their unconventional thinking. Exactly the kind of adaptability that made humans unique. Explain your plan in detail, Engineer Martinez, the general said. If there's a chance to warn Earth, we must take it. As Kate outlined her idea, The general realized he was placing the fate of his crew in human hands, not the deadly weapons he once feared, but the creative minds he now respected. 2 days later, the Vrex fleet emerged from jump space near Earth. Their commander smiled as 20 warships formed attack positions. The humans would never expect such a massive force. Victory would be quick and total. Then the commander froze in shock. Waiting in Earth's orbit was not just the planet's defense fleet, but a full hegemony battle group. 7 massive warships in defensive formation alongside Earth vessels. Impossible, the commander hissed. How did they know? On the bridge of the lead hegemony vessel, General Zix Vorn stood tall beside Admiral Bennett. His ship had been rescued just hours after Kate's makeshift beacon successfully transmitted its warning. The message had reached a nearby hegemony patrol, which rushed to collect the survivors and bring news of the coming attack to Earth. Now, the combined forces of Earth and the hegemony were ready. "Vrex command vessel is hailing us," a communications officer reported. "Put them through," the general ordered. The screen displayed the Vrex commander's scaled face, now twisted with anger. "How is this possible? You should not be here, General." "You underestimated humans, Commander," General Zix Vorn replied calmly. "As did I, once. These Deathworlders are too dangerous to join the galactic community," the Vrex commander insisted. "Their natural weapons are not what you think," the general interrupted. "We misunderstood humans. Their arms aren't weapons. Their minds are. And now those minds stand with the hegemony." The commander's only response was to cut the transmission. Moments later, the Vrex fleet began to advance, but they faced something they had never encountered before, a defense strategy combining hegemony power with human adaptability. Earth ships moved in unpredictable patterns, drawing Vrex vessels into carefully planned crossfires from hegemony cruisers. When 3 Vrex ships broke formation to attack Earth directly, they found themselves caught in a trap designed by Admiral Bennett. Smaller, faster Earth vessels disabled their engines, while hegemony weapons finished them. The battle lasted less than an hour. 5 Vrex ships were destroyed, 7 damaged beyond repair. The rest retreated in disarray, jumping away to safety. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in, General Zix Vorn joined Admiral Bennett in the ship's observation deck. Through the large window, they could see Earth, blue and green and beautiful. "Your plan worked perfectly, Admiral," the general said. "The Vrex never expected our forces to work together so effectively." "Because we each brought different strengths to the battle," she replied. "Your ships have power and technology beyond ours. Our tactics provided the unpredictability." The general's mandibles clicked in what humans now recognized as a smile. "I believe it is time to formalize our alliance." Later that day, in the Grand Hall of the Hegemony flagship, General Zix Vorn and Admiral Bennett signed the historic military alliance between Earth and the Galactic Hegemony. Representatives from both sides watched as they completed the formal documents. Then came a moment that would be remembered in history. General Zix Vorn extended one of his upper limbs. Admiral Bennett reached out, and they performed a careful handshake, a gesture now understood by both species. "To think," the general said quietly, "we once feared this simple greeting." "Fear of the unknown is universal," Admiral Bennett replied. "What matters is moving past it." 2 weeks later, a new training program began. Human officers worked alongside hegemony troops, each teaching the other their unique approaches to combat. The humans learned about specialized tactics from species evolved for specific environments. The hegemony soldiers learned human adaptability and problem-solving. General Zix Vorn watched from an observation platform as Ryan Cooper demonstrated improvised tools to a group of fascinated alien soldiers. "They are learning quickly," his second-in-command noted. "As are we," the general replied. For generations, the hegemony believed strength came from natural weapons and specialized evolution. Humans have shown us another path, the strength of adaptation. Below them, human and alien troops worked side by side, no longer separated by fear or misunderstanding, but united by the greatest weapon of all, knowledge.